Hello, everyone, and welcome to What Fresh Hell, laughing in the face of motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy. And this week, how is it still winter? Why is it not spring yet? What's
We
going
are,
on?
in fact, moaning in the face of motherhood and occasionally weeping in the face of motherhood,
Yes.
or at least gently crying in the face of motherhood.
The big news as we recorded this was this week, Elmo went on Twitter, Elmo from
Oh,
Sesame
Elmo.
Street, and he said, Elmo is just checking in. How is everybody doing?
Oh,
And
this didn't go well for
no,
Elmo, did it?
12,000 people came for Elmo saying variations of like, not great, Elmo.
Not great, Bob.
Actually, yeah.
There's a great scene in Mad Men, if you haven't watched it. There's a character who's like the underling, the kind of long-suffering, but also kind of horrible underling to the
Vincent
main.
Kartheiser is the actor, but I can't think of the character's name anymore.
Pete is the name. And he's John Hamm's underling. And he's also terrible. But I don't remember the source of the conflict in this particular episode. But there's a guy named Bob. And this character gets in the elevator. And Bob, who's like the office cheerful guy, is like, "How's it going, Pete?" And he just goes, "Not great." And my sister and I, that's become our go-to phrase.
Yeah.
I'm just always like, I'll be halfway through the description of my day. And she's like, "So it's a not great, Bob." I'm like, "Not
Mhm.
great, Bob."
Not great, Bob.
And that's how
Right.
we're all doing right now. Thanks, Elmo. Not great, Elmo.
I don't think Elmo was expecting to get that back. And now all the other characters of Sesame Street have hopped on. Snuffleupagus has very large ears, and he's available for listening if anybody wants to reach out
Oh,
to
thank you,
Snuffleupagus on Twitter.
Snuffleupagus.
He's here for you. Even Oscar.
I feel we need Oscar at a time
yeah.
like this. Oscar just needs to be depressed with us in our trash cans.
Yeah, Oscar is us. Oscar's not mean, Like he's
just
cranky.
metaphorically sitting in a trash can of life, just like the rest of us.
Yeah, he's and so are we. We're in the trash can of winter. We talked about this during the pandemic, and this was such interesting research. I'm bringing it back. We're going to talk about the third quarter phenomenon.
I need this because I will say, getting a little personal, this week I've just had the blues really badly. The blues mixed with, do you know the phrase? It's one of my favorite phrases ever. In Breakfast at Tiffany's, she doesn't get the blues. She calls them the mean reds. And it's like, that's so much more what I have. I have the mean reds. I don't have the blues.
It sounds like little pills you take,
well, the
in the
blues
70s.
implies like, I've got the blues. But like the mean reds are like jaggedy and jangled and like sharp and mean, the blues kind of feels soft and cozy in its own way, but the mean reds is what I have.
I can't really picture Audrey Hepburn having the mean reds.
Yeah, but Holly Golightly
even she did.
can.
Okay.
And I have the mean reds this week. And I've been talking to my spouse a lot about it, tearfully, I'm having also sundowning, which is it's a, what do you call it?
Sundowning is like people with Alzheimer's get much more confused when it gets dark and they start to want to go home
because
and things.
My husband sweetly has been checking in on me. Are you doing a little bit better? And I'm like, yeah, I think today's fine. And then he walks in the door at 5:30 and I'm like crying. And I'm like, oh, it's the sun goes down. And
it's the seasonal
darkness literally comes inside my bones.
Yes, it's been cloudy like 4 days in a row in New York City. And I get to like, what's the use really quickly, right? When there's no sunlight at all. It's not even that cold. It's just not sunny. It's not
and
nice.
That's the thing. It's not. Now, people go crazy when I say this. I'd a million times rather have snow than the weather that we're having, which is, we had one nice snow so far in New York. It wasn't exciting, but it was at least a little bit of snow. Snow is like, let's put on some chili and light the fire and get cozy in our flannel sheets and, make hot cocoa.
Right.
What
Fun
we're
to be
having
outside.
is like low gray sky with driving 40-degree rain. It's the worst of all the weathers.
Yes. Well,
at least snow is vaguely jolly, for God's sakes.
I did some research this morning and I went, will you take it as a given, more or less? I said that like the weather that you dread, the time of year you dread, starts around November 15th and it ends around April 1st. I feel like those are the before November 15th, it's still crunchy leaves. And after April 1st, here we go. Like it's getting dark at 7:00. So November 15th to April 1st is the dark time of the year.
For me, in my familial and religious tradition, it doesn't start bothering me until January 5th. Like I find that with the lights of Christmas. Like the cold doesn't bother me. It's the
Right. It's
endlessness
after
that bothers
Christmas.
me. Like I want it to be cold in November,
Well,
December. I just want it to end February 15th.
I ran some
And it
numbers for
doesn't.
you. It doesn't because it's not over yet. So, well, I ran different numbers, and you can run the numbers starting January 5th. I would say maybe you're still in the third quarter phenomenon, but I'm like, okay, are we in the third quarter of winter or not? So from that, it was
Okay.
like, I might need my winter coat November 15th. I might need my winter coat end of March, but that's it. Like that's the whole thing. So
Yes.
going from that, we are, guys, I broke it down. It's 137 days out of the year. That's like you might need a winter coat on and you'd rather be inside. Quarter one is basically until Christmas. Quarter two is Christmas until the end of January. Quarter three, January 23rd to February 27th. Basically, February is third quarter of
I
winter.
agree with this because even though I'm saying like I'm a good sport about winter until January, I'm still experiencing it. So
Yes.
it's the darkness too.
It's
Because I
third
was
quarter
just
phenomenon.
thinking, we went skiing. We have a little local ski hill here, and we went skiing last Saturday. And I was having this feeling of, oh no, like winter's almost over and we haven't really done a lot of ski. Winter has really stunk the last couple of years in New York. It's been rainy, not snowy, not cold enough, still cold enough to be unpleasant. And I was thinking, I think I'm really becoming such a winter person that I want winter to last longer. And then 1 week later, I was like in a fetal position crying for no reason in bed.
It
My
was
husband
you?
came home from work. Huh?
You wished for winter to be longer, and now it's we have you to thank.
Well, it's like I just want more snow, I think. I mean,
Yeah, I don't,
I
but I hear
I
you. It would be
I
better than
like
this.
snow. I like skiing. I like being out in the snow. I even like sledding still with my kids. I like watching my kids frolic in the snow, but we're getting all of the harm of winter and none of the
And none of the
benefits.
good
That's how I
stuff.
feel right now. Like it's all low gray sky, soggy rain. It's uncomfortable. I have a big winter coat. When I moved back to New York, my mother-in-law was nice enough for Christmas to buy me, because the first year I lived here, I had moved from California and I was still doing like 3 sweaters and a raincoat. Like I was just trying to make it up.
Mhm. Layers.
And she bought me a really good, I don't know who makes it, but let's say like Land's End, right? It's got a fuzzy hood. It's a real warm winter coat. And I haven't even had it on this year because
Too
it's
hot.
you don't really need it.
Mhm.
It's too hot. We haven't had a lot of freezing weather. And for me, I do a lot of like going to my garage, getting in my car, going to the gym, walking inside. I mean, I'm not going to put on a giant winter coat.
And then you're hot in the Target, and like that's
Yeah, I
another
don't
thing
like that.
that's
See,
terrible
for
about
you in New
winter.
York City, you spend more time outside
I do, but
because
yes,
you
even
walk a
then,
lot.
the big guns coat has not come out of the closet as much as it
Yeah.
used to. That's for sure.
I do think that's one part of the problem is all downside of winter,
Mhm.
zero upside.
Well, let's talk about the third quarter phenomenon because we're in
Yes,
the third
please,
quarter, like
because
what
that's
that
why I'm
actually
crying all
is.
the time right now. Go ahead.
So we talked about this during the pandemic when we were like, are we in the third quarter of the pandemic? And funny,
Which we
if you go
thought
back,
we were in like
Yeah,
9 times.
narrator voice, they were not in the third quarter of the
Correct.
phenomenon.
We were like, oh God, it's April 2020. We're in the
right.
third
Are
quarter
we in the
of
third
this.
quarter of this? And then again in March 2021, whatever. We weren't quite, but we felt like we were. And of course, the uncertainty made it even worse. But the third quarter phenomenon was not about the pandemic. In the 90s, these researchers named Robert Bechtel and Amy Burning studied scientists in the Antarctic who were in what they called a fixed term situation of isolation and stress. They're basically living in like a cabin in the Antarctic for, call it November 15th to April 1st, something like that, right? Some long period. They know how long it's going to be and they can't leave, and this is how it's going to be. And they discovered among these scientists something called the third quarter phenomenon, which was their worst morale, the most fighting and tension, the most like, what's the point? I'll be here forever, happened in the third quarter of their deployment. To
The
this.
beginning of the third quarter, right? Like
During the third quarter.
Oh,
Like,
no. Oh my God. This is where my mind is. I was like, because the third quarter goes to the end. No, there's the fourth quarter.
There's the
I'm being
fourth
a
quarter.
dummy.
Right,
It's
right.
the whole third quarter. I'm like, because the third, I'm thinking
the fourth
thirds.
quarter, right. There must be some like, we're almost out of here. Gosh, I'm going to miss this place thing that gets you through the fourth quarter. The first quarter is getting used to it. I don't know why the second quarter isn't that bad, but it's not. The third quarter is where all
sense.
of the bad feeling goes.
Ignoring my bozo lack of math reasoning, I think about this all the time. I'm flying to California later in the month, and it's the 4th hour of the 6-hour flight that kills you. You know what I mean? Like, because at the 5th hour, you're like, okay, we're almost there. Like
right,
two more episodes of Friends on the back of the plane seat, and we're there.
Mm-hmm.
But the 4th hour, the thrill of what are we going to watch? What are we going to do? We're up, we're heading off is gone.
Dinner's been served or snacks
light at
or
the
whatever.
end of the tunnel of being there has not being, like you can't, you're not close enough to be like, it's when you look up on the 6-hour flight and the little trackers, like you've 2 hours to go. You're like, oh no.
2 hours. Well,
Horrible.
This is what they discovered. So they discovered this. They called it the third quarter phenomenon. So then more studies have seen, like, can you apply this across different sorts of people, like astronauts? Yes, you can. And the other thing that was interesting is, can you apply this across different lengths of things? Like, is a 6-hour flight going to have a third quarter phenomenon just as much as a 4-month thing in the Antarctic? And the answer is yes, that it happens no matter how long. If you're in a mission, someplace where you're kind of stuck and it's a little bit unpleasant, the hardest part is going to be the 50 to 75% of the journey, which is exactly where we are.
Yeah, it makes a tremendous amount of sense for every version of this whole thing. Like there's no newness to it, and you can't see the end.
Right. And so maybe it's better to know, like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be right now. This is developmentally appropriate for me to be having third quarter phenomenon right now.
Right.
It's February. I'm going to quote a very wise woman, Margaret Abels, who has said,
hat tip to Ann Richards, my sister, because this was not original to me.
You say it. You take us home because it's your sister, so you should say it.
My sister's phrase, and she may have even gotten it from someone else, and it's the most useful phrase you'll ever hear. Never make a major life decision in February. And for those of you not into old movies, Chinatown, where you just, it's Chinatown, Jake, it's Chinatown. That's the whole movie kind of moves to the point of like Jack Nicholson's character is trying to figure out all these various threads and how can it be. And at the, one of the denouement moments is a guy says to him, it's Chinatown, Jake. It's Chinatown. It's like, this is just how it is here, people.
Uh-huh.
And my sisters and I often say to each other, it's February, babe. It's February. And that's the thing. Like, you don't need any more information about what's wrong and why you are Oscar the Grouch in the trash can than the fact that it's February. And I don't even care if you live in San Diego and you're at the beach all day, every day. It's still February.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And this year, hate to break it to you, friends, we get an extra day of February.
Is that right?
Yes, it's a leap year.
Okay.
So we get another whole day to not make decisions.
to just run in place.
Because what happens, the reason you can't make decisions in February, just to put a very fine point on it, is that you're so miserable and you're so deep in third quarter phenomenon that you're like, having children and being married was a mistake. I'm going to move to Guam and open a crab shack and serve martinis.
Krabby Patties. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to just light my whole life on fire and quit my job or just
pray, love it. Just get out of here.
You're going to eat, pray, love it. And then like, you're going to be at eat in March and be like, okay, this was good, but I don't want to pray or love. I just want to go home.
Right.
But you flipped everyone off on your way out the door and you were like, later, suckers, I'm out of here. It's like, you don't blow up your life in February, even though it is so tempting.
And everything we've said up until now is universally applicable. Like, February stinks and we just got to get through it. But there is a special kind of stuck inside, and how much longer is this going to take, that kicks into gear when you are a parent of kids who are stuck at home with you, who are out of things to do, who extended screen time gives them spiral eyes and makes them fight, but leaves them unsatisfied and yearning for something else. And you're in charge of what happens next. But fear not, listeners, because we are here to talk about how you can shake things up when you're at this moment where your third quarter phenomenon. Now what? Now what are we going to do? We have some ideas, and our listeners have some ideas.
After this,
I wanted to give a shout out to Ginny Urick, who is an upcoming guest that we're going to have on. She hosts the 1,000 Hours Outside podcast, and she came up with this whole 1,000 Hours Outside framework, which is amazing, which is that you should get your kids as a family, you should spend 1,000 hours outside during the year. And I wanted to hat tip that and say that we're going to be talking to her, and that is definitely a nice goal. But it's like what you were just saying before. This is the worst kind of winter, though, just the like rainy, wet, not fun, 38 degrees and gray stuff.
and we were having a fun little phenomenon on our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/whatfreshhellcast during the pandemic, that we had introduced the idea that people in Denmark leave their babies outside in strollers. And so that the babies would just spend a lot of time outdoors, bundled up, cozy, but outside in the cold. You'd see this line of like babies in strollers outside cafes. The moms were in having coffee and the babies were just all bundled up. And so we started this phenomenon during the pandemic where we were sharing pictures of ourselves as Danish babies, meaning we were wrapped up tight, but we were out on lawn chairs in our lawns with our faces towards the sun being Danish babies.
Right.
And I just said to my husband in my little mini crisis, I need to just Danish baby every day. But today the clouds are 2 feet above my head. It's wet and gross. And I would be more upset Danish babying outside than inside. Like, I don't even want to go outside.
Right. Also, back then, your friends were in it with you. Like, let's all Danish baby. We were Danish babying so we could see people. Now we can see people at Starbucks. We don't really have to sit in our gray backyards. Anyway, I just wanted to say, like, yes, is it better to get your kids outside a little bit? Probably. Even on a rainy day? Sure. But even Ginny says she has a calendar that you can download to get to 1,000 hours, which seems impossible, but it's not. You do it 1 hour at a time. And even the way she lays it out is spend like an hour outside on days like it is now. And spend 5 hours outside in July. That's how you get to 1,000 hours. Even Ginny's not saying spend 5 hours outside. This week.
Because there's days you're doing 8 hours. But yeah, today I'm doing like 45 seconds and I'm done. I don't want any more than that.
There are times we're stuck inside. We don't like you outside. There's reasons we can't be outside.
Thanks for checking in, but I'm doing pretty badly. I'm not even doing 1 hour outside my bed today. This is my 1 hour outside my bed talking to you, and then I'm going to go jump back under my flannel sheets and hide.
I mean, they're just always are like, their brother has strep throat, so you can't go anywhere. It's this. You're waiting for the dishwasher guy to come. You can't go anywhere. Like, there's all kinds of reasons that we really can't go anywhere, or it's raining, or, we're waiting for something later. You're still stuck inside. We're out of ideas. And so we wanted to talk about ways to sort of change things up, right? Ways to make things new and exciting when everything's the same and boring and old.
Yeah, I think this is good. We're going to get into some actual tips because goodness knows, if y'all wanted to hear a 9-hour podcast about me complaining about February, that is available to you. But this is actually going to try to be a podcast where we offer some version of a solution.
Yes. So I broke down, before we go through the actual listener suggestions, I thought we would break down sort of the categories, like the ways to think about this, like the questions to ask yourself, because I think most of them fall into a couple of categories.
Yes.
So the first one is to change the context. To make things seem new, just change the context of them. Like, you bring something that you usually use outside, inside. That was a suggestion from Ella, one of our listeners. Back in the pandemic day, do you remember somebody suggested put Legos in the bathtub? Like, they're fine. They don't take on water. She, in desperation, dumped a thing of Legos in the bathtub, and her kid stayed in there for 90 minutes playing with the Legos. That just take something and put it somewhere where it doesn't usually belong and let the kids play with it there. You're going to get a real reward out of that if you hit the right thing.
Yeah, and it's a simple kind of set point of, you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel and think, I just put a book in the giveaway pile that's like 75 fun ideas to do with your kids. I did 0 of those 75 ideas and eventually just put the book in the giveaway pile. And maybe some other
Dump
mom will
Legos in the
find it.
bathtub.
Yeah, someone else will find it useful. But by the time I get exhausted just thinking about like, take construction paper. I'm like, I'm out. Once I see the word yarn, I'm like, never mind. I don't want to be involved in this anymore.
There is an idea, book traps. I saw this a long time ago in a parenting magazine, and this is another version of this. This parenting expert suggested that you get some kids' books, whatever, while your kids are at school, while your kids are in the other room, while your kids are at karate, whatever. And you lay out like some blankets, make a cozy spot on the floor. Again, somewhere different, the top of the steps, somewhere that they don't usually go, corner of the kitchen. And you put books and a quilt there. It's just something that isn't usually there is all of a sudden there. And your kids come home or they come around the corner and they're like, what's that? And she said, it's magical. You will see. They sit down and start reading. This is clearly like 10 and under, guys. But I did this a lot when my kids were little. I would get out a blanket and like say the horses that are usually in my daughter's room. I'd get out the horses and I'd get out a blanket and I'd line up the horses like by the front door. And I'd also get out like, some Fisher Price guys and line them up. And like, this is a horse show. And my kids would come in and be like, what is this? I'm like, it's a horse show. They're at a horse show. And the kids would like fall to it like it was their job to play with that until dinner time.
And we've talked a lot about this with younger kids. And it's something that I was terrible at, but when I did it, it worked, is rotating the toys, like not having the 400 toys always available because then there's nothing to do. Whereas if you are able, you have a closet where you can keep stuff and then, one day it's all the Star Wars things are out and then they go away and out come all of the, what are those things called? Magnetiles, It does help, I think, it's new to you. Also, one way to do this is just to throw things away because, man, let me tell you, when a kid sees a toy in a garbage bag, it suddenly becomes their favorite toy ever.
I still like that. That's a great tip.
It's like you haven't touched it in 10 years. That's my favorite thing in the world.
Yes. And let me tell you, that doesn't go away. You have teenagers and you try to get rid of the thing that like it's dusty.
Well, talking about older kids too, I feel like sometimes the weekends are really hard for us, and my kids are teens and tweens now, kid with a birthday. And I'm more like just screeching rules at the top of my lungs rather than setting up wonderful horse shows and book traps. But I will occasionally be like, it's cozy hour for the next 2 hours. No screens. I'm turning the fire on. Everyone grab a blanket, find a cozy spot. And that's where you are for the next hour, let's say.
Yes.
And it's imposed coziness, but it's like you can chat with each other. You could find, but you're just in your cozy spot and then you don't have a screen. So figure it out.
Yeah.
You're in cozy jail, basically.
Yeah. Cozy jail, but it's on the branding. You don't call it cozy jail. You call it cozy time.
It's cozy time. And my husband and I both have seats that are our cozy spots. And it's like, I'll even hand you a blanket for cozy time. But it's cozy time. And the only thing that's allowed. Yeah, I mean, this is the problem. My husband and I are like, is it cozy time again? And the kids are like, not cozy time. We're like, we only want cozy time.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, you can't be
Your
in
needs
bed
may
for cozy.
vary.
There's been a huge fight because you're not allowed to be in bed for cozy time. And bed is cozy, but cozy time in bed is different. This is cozy sitting up time. It encourages reading, basically.
Okay, all right. I like it,
you
but you're
can
not
just
calling it
stare
reading
into the middle distance and have deep thoughts, but you're not on screens. And you're not really making any noise.
A user on Instagram named Kaisa Coates. She started with her little ones eating dinner by candlelight during like the dark winter months. She said a little over a month ago, we tried this. Dinner time is significantly calmer. The kids slow down and they want to sit and talk around. One night I forgot and they said, aren't we going to have candlelight? And they light it up. And she said her youngest is 4 and loves it. And I thought this was a great example. It's a great idea. And it's an example of like the thing that you don't like. What if there was more of it? This is like sort of like a screenwriting thing, right? Like the thing that's not working. What if you made it bigger instead of took it out? So like it's too dark. It's getting dark too early. Right. Let's have dinner by candlelight.
Lean into the dark.
Yeah.
We do this sometimes and we call it fancy dinner. And
Mm.
fancy dinner, I'll tell you, get $8 worth of wine glasses at, somewhere cheap. Like a $2 wine glass, suddenly my kids are in heaven. Like, I mean, again, now they're teenagers, not so much, but even still, I'm going to say fancy dinner is still being pulled off.
Uh-huh.
You put chocolate milk or apple juice or even Coke, whatever their drink of choice is, in a wine glass, and it's fancy dinner. And you should see these kids with a wine glass. They just act like they are just,
Like Le Bernardin, right?
they're like Prince William and Lady Kate. Is that my name? Because
Mhm.
here I am with my wine glass full of chocolate milk.
I
A
love it.
wine glass, that's a $2 investment that really pays dividends.
And it might tip over and it might break or whatever, but it's worth
That's
it,
the
right?
thing. We don't
right.
care.
We don't
Yeah, we don't
right.
care if it breaks and we don't care if it tips over.
Right,
And
right.
honestly, they're so into it that we have not had one break. I'm not
Mm.
talking about leaded crystal. I'm talking about a $2, but they're I guess we've had some tip over, but they're just like, they just love
They
drinking
take
out of
it
them.
seriously.
Yeah.
Another sort of like great rule is to flip the order of things, right? When like the order is boring, can you flip the order?
Give me an
Like
example.
like breakfast for dinner, like pancakes and
Mm.
sausage for dinner,
Or
ice cream first, right? Or like dessert first and then dinner, things like that. I'm not
Mm.
saying you do it every night. I'm saying you talk all week about how Wednesday we're going to have backwards dinner, and the kids are like, "What's that?" And you say, "Well, you'll just have to wait and find out." And then backwards dinner, which may or may not be by candlelight, is like dessert first.
kids love this. And I
Mhm.
mean, my sister-in-law introduced us to the concept, which I've spoken about before, of ice cream dinner in the summer. You're like, let's just get ice cream. That's
Yeah.
dinner. That's our meal. And the thrill of ice cream dinner, it's like, has the world gone mad? Mom's serving ice cream for dinner. I think jangling up the expectations sometimes is very magical for kids. It feels like, and it also, I think, reinforces their sense that there is a lot of order, because it's like, well, this is the disordered version. And it makes them feel like comfortable that, like, okay, the order makes me feel safe. And also, if the order goes away, it's also okay.
Mhm.
I'm all for it.
Well, why don't we take a break? And when we come back, we're going to give you some of our listeners' best ideas for being stuck inside and keeping kids busy, how to shake things up.
All right, Amy, we've gone to our Facebook group, which I already shouted out. Go find
Yeah.
it. What Fresh Hell Podcast Facebook group. If you look it up on Facebook, you'll find us there. Thousands of us all chatting with each other. And we went there to ask our listeners what their great ideas are for surviving this third quarter of winter.
I loved this one from Sammy Joe. She said we had a cold blast with multiple days in the negatives, which must have been the Midwest somewhere. So they did an ice capade. She had the kids find toys you want to rescue from ice, put them in a Tupperware container each, one for each kid, left them outside overnight to freeze. And in the morning, her kids had to use water and salt and whatever tools they could to chip away and get the Lego guys out of the ice. She said it took an hour and it was no mess and everybody was happy.
Super fun. Super
Amazing.
fun. Love it.
Mhm.
Low buy-in. And also,
Right,
to
no
your
yarn.
point, we're leaning in. And this is where I think the lack of snow and stuff has been bumming me out.
Yeah.
Like, we're leaning into winter as opposed to like keeping winter at bay.
Yeah. Actually, one more thing about the winter. You do need snow for this. Gail said when her kids were little, they would play for hours with snow on a baking sheet. They'd wear their gloves if their hands got cold, but mostly they just use their little trucks or kitchen items to scoop it and make recipes out of it. Once it got too melty, I'd dump it and bring in more, and they'd keep going.
Love it.
All you need is snow.
All you need is snow. Yeah. And I mean, I definitely am the person who's like, my first thought whenever anything like this is brought up is like, that sounds messy. But I think, again, like the fear of cold, the fear of mess kind of sometimes gets in our way of buying ourselves time that
Right.
we really need, And again,
Right.
we did an episode where we forgot what this was like when I was taking care of my 2 and 6-year-old niece and nephew. And when you just wake up to that gaping yawn of 6:30 a.m., I've got 16 hours to go. And my dad has a joke that if he found out he had a year to live, he would spend it riding an exercise bike at a children's birthday party, because those are the two things that like make time stop when you're riding an exercise bike or you're at a children's birthday party. He's like, I could stretch it to be like, if it would feel like 23 years.
It's true. You'd be like, take me, Lord. I'm done.
You'd be like, I'm ready
I'm
to
done
go.
early,
Get me out of here. But it's true that like that feeling of like that unique feeling that I will tell you guys, you just don't have it anymore when your kids are all over 10, where you're like, oh my God, it's 7:35. Okay, let's plan 6 activities. Okay, now it's 8:12. You know, like how is the day humanly possibly moving this slow? Any activity that eats up an hour is your friend.
And this baking sheet one, like, okay, so you get a couple pool towels, right, first, and you put them on your table. And then you put the baking sheet of snow, and then it's snow. It's just water, right? It's just, it is worth it. It's worth the hour, even if you have to change your kids' clothes after, because nobody's fighting and everybody's deeply engaged. It's a different kind of peace. Otherwise, they're fighting and jumping on the furniture and yelling. And this is worth wiping up the water on the floor afterwards, I think.
Yep. And
Rachel,
I think,
go ahead.
And I think that one thing that the pandemic taught us, and then we forgot this lesson very quickly, was what is the expression? There's no weather, there's clothing. There's some expression I'm not coming up with right now, but like you can go out in most weather if you have the right kind of clothes. I mean, friends of mine and I would sit out in 29-degree weather with cups of coffee around a fire pit and chat for 5 hours.
Right. I mean, it was better than being home alone. Right.
Yeah. And I think, and also we would get the kids out in gear and go walking in the woods, you know, and we've gotten so out of all of those habits because we don't have to do those things anymore. But a lot of these activities can happen outside. Like the tray of snow can be on your deck, you know, it doesn't always have to come inside the house.
Right. Well, this is like when there's a wind chill of 12, or you're making dinner, or you have to listen for the baby or whatever, right? This stuff can come inside, but you're right. Like, or we suck it up and send them outside for a while.
Yeah.
Rachel had a good one I'd never heard before. One year I made up a holiday. I guess I didn't hear of it because she made it up. Rachel's holiday.
Because you don't live in Rachel's house.
Rachel's holiday is called East-O-Ween. It's a cross between Easter and Halloween. The kids wear costumes, makeup, etc., and hunt Easter eggs in the house. It's a buy nothing holiday, so we have to use what we can find. It's been really fun. Sure. I mean, yeah, hide Easter eggs. Otherwise, they're like in the weird cabinet above your refrigerator for 363 days a year, right? Get them out.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff you're good at this. This is not in my skill set, but it's the marketing thing of like, we're going to do this fun thing just by calling it something, you know, and kids are very susceptible to this and very into it. And it's fun.
Well, I'll bring the goal line closer to all of us. Shannon
please
says
do.
It's really fun to let your kids unroll a roll of toilet paper around the house. Whoever unrolls it the fastest without breaking it wins. She says, my kids still ask years later if they can do this.
I'm trying to picture it. The game is you unroll a roll of toilet paper.
Each kid gets a roll of toilet paper.
And how fast you could unroll it without breaking it.
You have to unroll the whole roll without it breaking, I guess. Whoever can unroll their whole roll first, but if you break it, you have to start over with a new roll or something. And they have to clean it up. She did say, I cut this part, but Shannon did say, P.S., you get buy-in ahead of time. Cleanup is at the participant's responsibility.
Huge. Yeah. I used to do one with, I saw it somewhere. You tie a piece of string on something in the house, and then you just walk around with the string, and then the kids have to follow it and find the whole path. And it's, again, stupid, but takes up a lot of time and doesn't involve that much cleanup.
Erin did this one, and I've seen this on Instagram, but it never occurred to me that you could like copy and paste this for home use. She said, go on YouTube and search Disney ride or roller coaster rides. And there's all these videos people have done of their perspective riding on the Seven Dwarfs Runaway Mine Train or whatever. And that you then sit the kid on your lap and watch the rides, and you pretend, maybe put them in a laundry basket and pretend they're on the ride.
That seems fun. Seems fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I would do that. That seems fun. That's low entry.
This was a
I'm gonna
higher
try it this weekend with my 16-year-old. I'm gonna
try
put
it.
him in a
Yeah.
laundry tub, and I'm going to give him
I'm gonna be like, can you believe it? We're at Disneyland. Aaron had one that was a little more effort, but I really like this one too. Pick an animal. Like today is Platypus Day. We're going to talk about and learn about the platypus all day. Watch a couple of videos on YouTube, then you try to draw it. Then you let them use the recycling bin to make a habitat for a platypus or a way to catch one or whatever. Then you make up a poem about it, etc. It's Platypus Day.
That is a fun idea. That is a
Mhm.
really fun idea. We play a game in the car that is called I Know Something About. And you say, the leader of the game, whoever it is, you take turns, says, I know something about platypuses, that the males have a poisonous barb on their back right foot, an actual true fact about platypuses, friends. And then the next person has to say, I know something about platypuses. They are one of only two mammals who lay eggs. I have a lot of I could do this whole because my son is a
Don't
platypus
play
maniac.
Margaret in this one.
Don't
right.
play with Matt.
Pick a different animal.
But it's really fun. And then, but you can also say, I know something about platypuses. They have 4 feet. Like they have a tail.
Okay.
And so
Uh-huh.
you can, everybody just, and then it keeps going until you're out. Somebody doesn't know something else to say. And then you pick a different animal and you do it. It's fun. It's a good card game with little kids.
Cassie says use painter's tape. I'm a big fan of painter's tape.
We are all about painter's tape, people.
Cassie says she uses it to create laser mazes. Like use a doorway and you tape the painter's tape across the doorway and then maybe like down a hallway so that your kid, like Catherine Zeta-Jones in that movie. Oh God, what was that movie? Where there's all these lasers.
I know the one you're talking about. Her butt was like going under the lasers.
Her butt was going, right, exactly. It's some jewel heist kind of a movie. Search YouTube for jewel heist laser escape videos.
And you use painter's Catherine Zeta-Jones butt laser and that'll come up. Because the shot is of like her butt dipping right under the laser.
You gotta sort of slow motion kickbox over this one and then get under that one. Make one of those for your kids and then have them make one for you. I have definitely gotten mileage out of, okay, I'll do a scavenger hunt for you with 5 things on it. And now you make a scavenger hunt for me that has 5 things on it. And it'll take them, half an hour to do your scavenger hunt and 2 hours to create the scavenger hunt for mom. And meanwhile, you've, finished your dissertation waiting for them to come back with the 5 things they need you to find. And you may or may not find it, but then it'll be dinner time anyway.
And you don't have to do all these things with the kids. Let me tell you a good one. You get a couple of little squares. You give them like 4 squares, 2 kids. And it's basically floor is lava. Like, can you get from here to upstairs and back downstairs without touching the floor? And you can use these little, squares of construction paper. I just said I don't do anything with construction paper. Give them like 2 coasters to put their feet on, anything. And then they have to figure out if they can get upstairs and downstairs without ever touching the floor. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Sometimes it leads to like finding kids on like furniture and stuff, but oh well. This is why we don't have any nice furniture.
It's like you're out of ideas and they can be happy for an hour doing this. It's worth it. Babby has one. This is and like so crazy, it probably works. She says you throw out all of the clothes, her words, all of the clothes, you throw them in a big pile. Then you let the kids roll around in them and hide each other under them. She says, I know this sounds horrible. She lives
somewhere that gets really cold for a really long time because this is insanity.
Right. I know this sounds horrible, says Babby, and results in so much work afterwards. But the few times that I've allowed this, it was a huge success. Yeah, it's like, is it worth the 20 minutes of picking it up? If they played for 2.5 hours, it might be. Like that. I think I'm on Babby's side on this. Like, clean up whatever. If they loved it and they didn't fight, then you win.
I'm going to give you another one that saved my butt during I have a daughter, and for maybe her, I want to say like 7th birthday party, winter birthday. I invited whatever, all the kids in the grade, all the girls in the grade. Let's call it 12 kids. And I'm sort of like, they're girls. They can just play dolls in her bedroom. I didn't really give it that much thought. Mm-hmm. And 12 minutes into the party, it was chaos. They were running up and down. We have a, what do you call it? Like a elevated, walkway, like a catwalk kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
And I'm like, someone's going to go over the side of it. They were wild. And I had one of those rolls of paper that goes on an easel, rolled it out on the floor and wrote happy birthday in bubble letters. And I was like, you guys have to create the birthday poster, and threw 1 million crayons on the floor. And they worked on this poster for an hour. That's a good one.
Yeah, exactly. And you never know what's going to catch on, but they're like, I need your help with this. That's another thing that kind of works for kids.
Good opening
under 10,
line. I need your help with this.
I need your help with this. They still buy into wanting to do that. This is one Michelle came up with. It is her older daughter's invented game for days she was stuck inside. So thank you, Michelle's daughter, for this one. You cut up a sheet of paper into 16 rectangles and fill them in. It's just cut up and put one thing on each sheet of paper. A board game, read for half an hour, clean the playroom, practice the piano, play Nintendo for 15 minutes, have a snack, whatever. Fill it out with 16 different things. You fold them up and you put them in a cup. And then you pull it out, and that's what you do next. And then she says, like, it's the rules of the game. Like, there's chores in there, there's screen time in there. It's the luck of the draw, and whatever the piece of paper says is what happens next. And then the kids just do it. And then you don't have like an 8-hour day where it's raining and raining. You have like 16 chunks of 20-minute activities, and that the kids are happy to do it.
Yeah, this used to be me with my whiteboard. I was living on like, here's the schedule for the day. And it was very random, right? It was clean your rooms, 15 minutes, screen time, 2 hours probably, read a book, and it just made the day. It's like the old, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Like, it just breaks the day down, because what we're trying to avoid in the third quarter, friends, is the gaping, yawning maw of time that threatens to swallow us all whole. Thanks for asking how we're doing, Elmo.
Right. It's that, like, how much longer will this go on? Right. If you can bring the finish line closer, I don't have to worry about what we're going to do all day, because for the next 20 minutes, we're going to read a book about ducks. That helps all of us, probably kids and parents both.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're here for, Amy, to help children and parents both.
We solved the heck out of that one with some help from our listeners.
Indeed.
And there must be somebody out there that who is stuck home with their kids in this gray, rainy time, that you could send them this episode pretty much wherever you're listening right now. You can tap, swipe, share, send it to them, be like, you would love this show. You would love this podcast. That's how podcasts grow, any podcast, by word of mouth. And so we'd love that help.
Thank you. Or you can even post it on your own social media and say, here's a great episode. And then you don't have to, get people one by one. You can get them hundreds at a time. That's what we really love.
That's right. You can catch lots of listeners for us at once. That would be nice.
Like a book trap. It's a social media trap, people. We love it. Podcast trap. We love it.
Podcast trap.
Thanks so much for listening, friends. We'll talk to you next time.
So long.